So yesterday I found myself looking into a payroll protection program loan, which is one of the things that the government created when it enacted CARES on March 27th. And my first thought was, I'm self-employed. I don't really have a payroll, so to speak. So probably I can't avail myself to this because I don't pay myself in the sense of a traditional employee. Well, my impression was incorrect because PPP is available to all sorts of people, and this is really more directed at those of us who are self-employed, work in the gig economy. Really any job that does not that's not a traditional employee on a payroll. So. In addition to who you would expect is eligible for payroll protection, it's important to understand that sole proprietors, independent contractors, as well as the self-employed are eligible. And what is the purpose of the loan that you might be seeking out? It's to pay payroll. It's to pay your mortgage, interest, to pay rent, utilities. It's meant to keep the lights on. It's a lifeline for you to make sure that you don't run out of cash before it's too late. How much can you borrow? You can borrow 2.5 times your average payroll costs. You say, well, I don't have a payroll. You keep saying this word payroll. Well, they've changed the definition, or they've given us a definition of payroll that is quite broad. So it includes, for those of us self-employed, gig economy, independent contractor sorts, it includes wages, of course, commissions, net earnings up to $100,000. So basically, whatever you're taking in as income, whether it's payroll from a traditional employer or commissions, whatever it is, these loans are intended to compensate you for what you're not taking in, while we all have to sit at home and get through Netflix. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and that is the loan is forgivable. It's not automatic, but it's forgivable to the extent that you pay payroll, that you've paid mortgage interest using these funds, you've paid rent for on a lease that was already in existence, utilities. You can even use it to pay. You can even be forgiven to the extent that you use it to pay tips for your tipped employees. So, this is the whole point of these programs, is to pay people to stay at home, so we don't have to be panicking, so that when these stay-at-home shelter-in-place orders are lifted, that business can go back to normal as much as possible. Now, one also interesting thing is that you can get a $10,000 advance on this, like right away. So the speed at which you can obtain the funds, that's just as important as the amount, because it doesn't matter if you get a nice loan in 3 months because your bank is inundated with applications if you've got bills due now. So you can get that $10K almost right away. And if it turns out you're not eligible for the loan, it's forgiven. So, basically it's $10K out there waiting for you as long as you believe you're eligible. If you're not, then it gets forgiven. If you are eligible and you ultimately get a loan, it will get subtracted from the amount you ultimately borrow. So my advice to you is, if you think you're eligible for one of these loans, and please, there's no you don't get points for not borrowing money at this time. You don't, you're not I'm not me personally, I'm not going to pat you on the back if you say, well, I just toughed it out and I didn't avail myself to the help that's out there, because that attitude is going to make it that much harder for the economy to get back going after this thing is over. So go and get the help. I know it probably feels weird. It's not how we were brought up as Americans. Oh, gee whiz, bootstrap and all that. This is not the time for that kind of selfish pride to be the prevailing attitude, because that's only going to get us deeper into this thing. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on PPP. And then I just want to close out by saying, I keep telling people not to panic, don't panic, and it's so easy to say, not so easy to practice. You might ask me why I'm so confident, why I'm not panicking, and my response would be, it's probably because I'm maybe a little weird. But also, I have been arming myself with as much information as possible. And a couple of things I want to recommend, a couple of podcasts actually. So if you want to know the latest on what science has figured out with respect to COVID, I recommend a podcast called Science Versus, and I'm going to put a link in the description here to this one. And also, if you want to know more, or you want to have a better understanding of the economics behind all of this stuff, I highly recommend Planet Money from NPR. I've been listening to it for years. Right now, they're twice a week. Right now, they're as many times as is necessary. They also have a sister podcast called The Indicator that comes out daily. So, if you want to arm yourself with what I consider to be good, as neutral as possible sources for both scientific and economic information about COVID, these are great resources. I also know that NPR has a daily COVID podcast, which I don't listen to, so I'm not going to endorse, but I find NPR to be generally a fairly good source for facts, and I don't want to debate sources here, so if you want to get political, take it somewhere else. Anyways, bye for now.